Welcome back to 10 Foot Customs and part 2 of the fiberglass work on Rusty. For you it's been at least a couple days. For me it's been enough time to get myself coffee and to turn the camera around. For those who don't know, repair and stuff like that on fiberglass is pretty easy. So, things you need to do fiberglass repair. You need fiberglass, and there's two major kinds of fiberglass, I guess you'd say. This is fiberglass matte, which is a weave that is just kind of haphazardly put, and this is going to be for like core strength. It really doesn't have a good finish when it's done. I mean, you can if you want it to, but it's not designed to have a nice clean finish. And then you've got fiberglass cloth. You can see the cloth is a nice consistent weave. It's thinner, but when it's laid down, you could actually like lay this down smooth, and you wouldn't have to do anything else to it. You know, maybe some minor finishing, but this is usually your top layer. For what I'm doing underneath the bodywork, I'm not going to be using cloth. I will just be using matte because that's what you know. It doesn't have to look pretty. It's got to be structurally strong, and I want it to layer up nice and thick. So, step one would be make sure you have your material that you want to use. 2 is you need fiberglass resin. This is what I'm using. This does not have a UV protectant in it, so I can't leave it out in the sun for very long. I mean, I don't even know what that is. You know, it might be fine for a month in the sun without doing any damage, but it will break down in the sun over time, so I have to make sure I get a coat of paint on it. You can't just leave it raw. Usually with your resin you will get your liquid hardener. So it's a transparent liquid. This is what you use to harden it. Lacquer thinner. I use lacquer thinner for cleanup, for my hands, stuff like that. And if you got it on something else, lacquer thinner will break it down and clean up. If you wanted to thin it, you can use acetone. That's what I thin with. Right now I'm not using any thinned resin. I'm actually using it in the normal strength. So, and you will need a scale that does ounces. This is my fiberglass scale. Those are the bare basics. Now, other things that I am using: carbon fiber. This is basically, again, that same type of weave. Well, not the same type, but it's a nice finish weave material. And I'm also using carbon Kevlar, which you can tell because it's got a colored weave difference in it. You've got blacks and blue. I've got it in red and black, and I've also got it in yellow and black. But this is the carbon Kevlar. The reason why I use the carbon Kevlar, there's a couple of reasons. Fiberglass is strong. It's great, and it'll work just fine for the majority of what I'm doing. I'm using the carbon fiber where I want strength, like strictly strength. So like in my cowl where it's got some flex, but I'm not fastening anything to it. Not that you can't, you know, it'd be fine to fasten to, but I'm not fastening anything to it. And there's no roll cage going to it or anything like that. I'm using carbon fiber, 2 layers of carbon to strengthen that, so it's not gonna have flex to it. And the carbon Kevlar is very difficult to rip and is very structurally strong. So I'm putting that like where the feet of my roll cage go, where my seats go. I showed a picture of that earlier. So there's a bee. I'm allergic to bees. That's what, no, the different reasons I'm using things. I'm sure I'm doing it wrong, but for what my brain tells me, this is how I should be doing it. Oh, the other thing you're gonna need, bowls. You need something to mix it in. And these chip brushes, because you can't reuse them. Once you've used this stuff, it goes bad, and it's done, and it's garbage. And you gotta throw it away, because you get about 50, in my heat, about 15 minutes of work time before the resin goes hard. And that's another thing, is only mix what you can use, because you can't save it. And the more you mix, the faster it goes, because it's exothermic, I do believe. It's a big word, exothermic, which means as it builds heat, it'll cure faster. And as as that heat builds, it'll cure, and now it's building more heat and curing faster. So if you mixed a big tub of it, I've actually mixed plastic containers of it, and it's melted the container it's in because it's gotten so hot, but it's also hardened in about 3 minutes. So be careful with that. Got bees back. So yeah, I like using these throwaway Dixie bowls. They work really well, and you can mix. I think I've mixed up to like 6-7 ounces in them at a time. It works perfect, and you can when they go to bed, just toss them. Okay, that's enough about that. Let's get into laying a first layer. This is one layer of this fiberglass tub as far as how they built these four-wheel drive hardware tubs. So you'd have a layer here, and you have this outer layer here. It actually was over here as well. You can see this little lip underneath here. So it's when they build them, they build an inner and an outer, and they sandwich them together and glue them together. Again, this is all rotted core. I have now, it's all cleaned up, all the rotted wood's out of it. I did some repair over here that I filled in because it was pretty bad here. But this is all just now raw fiberglass. And then I will take this plate and put this plate in here, and what the plan is then to glue this down. I'll put resin underneath it, resin on the board itself, and I'll run screws through it like I did on the other side, and it will suck this piece of PVC down to it and hold it tight and glue it to the tub. And then these holes here, the factory had them on their tub, and it was actually little pockets that glued the outer and the inner tub together. So the outer shell and the inner shell were actually stuck together solidly between these three holes. My plan is to lay this in here, and then I will make a resin, I don't even know, it's kind of like a resin fiberglass mash, and I'll stick it in and fill these holes, so it'll be solid fiberglass in these three holes, and then I'll lay my glass on top of it. I tapered this side here because this is where the wiring harness goes through, and I just want it to be nice and clean when I get in here with that. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to glue this thing in, and I drilled all the holes in here to allow resin to flow between the two, so that it'll give it more bond between the two sides of the fiberglass through the core. The mixing of epoxy resin, very simple. Turn my scale on. I'm going to put my bowl on my scale, zero it out. Pour my resin into my bowl. So I'm going to need about 3 or so ounces. So I got 3.5 ounces, so 3.5 ounces of resin. It's 10 drips of the liquid hardener per ounce. So this is going to be 35 drips. That simple. 2, 3, 4, 35. You get a drip or two more, not going to hurt it. Take the chip brush and just mix it all up. Here we are. Yeah, it's just a mix at that point. Get it stirred up really nice and well. I'll try to get it out of my brush a couple of times. Make sure I don't have just extra hardener in my brush or just extra resin in my brush. Isn't this? Yeah. Okay. I try to keep this also out of the sun, and I'll mix it and keep it in the garage until the very last moment when I have to use it, because again, the sun will make it go way faster than just sitting in here. But again, I have to use this quick. I've got maybe 10 or 15 minutes to use this before it is just a hockey puck of resin. I'm going to set this here, drink a coffee, and we will go glue this piece in. You'll see also I've got a whole bunch of tape in all the holes that I don't want to drip through, because this is a mess. And there's no pretty about this, you just get it in. that done. Now we'll go down to this side. Okay, it's all coated. This has to drop in there. Drop it like that. I think that's darn close. Oh.
Where are you gonna be starting at?
Let's start in the back and work forward. See it? Pushing up.
Yeah, you got it.
Pull tight.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. I'm gonna move toward the electronics hole.
Okay. Tight.
Okay, move forward along the inner tub well.
Okay.
Okay.
And this one was that first one you went in the hole, and I don't think you could have been more dead center on that one.
Yeah, that's good. And that's gonna. Oh, it's done.
It's done.
As I was talking about in the sunshine, this is already done. The brush is done, the resin's done. So that's about as much time as you get if you leave it out in the sunshine. But what we did down here. So this is now in. Ran all these screws through here. It pulled the two materials together. It was actually squishing out of some of the holes. It's like squishing out back here. And that will dry in there, and then I can run a couple layers of fiberglass on top of that, and it'll be like the other side, and that'll strengthen this up. We got this in here and glued, and actually it's pretty well dry, a little tacky. This is actually going to dry slower than what was in here. Take a measurement here. This has all been cleaned up. There's no more paint. It's all down to raw fiberglass, and we're about 10 inches wide here, and then about 33 inches or so across. I like to do this in 3 pieces because, again, the resin dries so quick that I want to have time to get it in here. So I'll do it in probably 12-inch, make 3 10 by 12 pieces of fiberglass mat and put down my first layer. But before I do that, I've got to fill these in. I forgot to fill these in. So I'll show you how I do this. This is again, this is kind of like figured out myself. So we're gonna fill these holes in. So to make what I use as my filler, there's ways of doing it. There's basically you can make thickened epoxy. I've heard you can use talcum powder to do it. I've never tried that technique. For what I do, I set it up the same way. I'm gonna make a little bit less of it because I know I don't need a ton of it. So I have 2.4 ounces, 24 drips, 24. And I will mix my resin up. What I do then is I take fiberglass mat. You can do it with anything, fiberglass mat. You can do it with the fiberglass cloth as well. This tends to chop up quicker or easier and smoother. And I'll just take it and cut small sections of it, and a lot of them. Just keep. Okay. And then I'll just mix all that in until I get a nice consistency of paste that I want. This here is still a little thin. It still runs, and I don't want it to run. So I'm going to add a little bit more fiberglass to it. There's no correct formula. It all depends on what you want. If you want it to run a little bit more, you got a hole that you want it to seep down into, you could probably use a little less fiberglass. If you want more structure to it, use a little bit more fiberglass. I've done this with, I've chopped up carbon fiber into it before, because that'll give it some crazy strength. I did that in a lot of my hinge spots if I had to fill. Okay, so here I've got what I consider to be pretty good. It doesn't run, it's just a nice paste. And I'll take this paste and I will just fill these holes. Try to get it as smooth as possible. It honestly doesn't have to be perfect, I'm just trying to get any air bubbles out. I'm going to be laying fiberglass on top of it anyway, so this one's a little higher than I want, and that one's a little lower, so I'll take some of that out and move it over to there. Okay, I'm going to let this cure for a little while, and we'll come back and put some fiberglass on it. I'm going to cut 3 10x12 sections of fiberglass, and then they'll overlap in the middle, which is fine. I want extra layers anyway, so overlapping is not a big deal. I just want to make sure that I can get the resin down for each piece before it hardens. So I'll make small batch, put down a panel, small batch, put down a panel, small batch, put down a panel. I might be able to use all the same bowl, but sometimes again, you never know how quickly this is going to go off. So this is fiberglass mat again. This is what I'm going to use. I get all of this stuff from Walmart, which is kind of nice for repair. You know, you can just buy it all locally. For what I'm doing, this by no means has to be perfect as far as my cut lines. Okay, so there's our 3 pieces. It has probably been less than 5 minutes since I laid these things in here, and they're already solid enough. They got a little bit of a rubbery feeling to them, so they're not completely cured yet. But the nice thing about fiberglass is I can lay right on top of that, and it'll all cure anyway. So even though that's not 100% done, I can start laying my next layers of glass on top of this. So I just mixed up 3 ounces of resin, and I don't know if that's going to be enough actually. I probably should have mixed up a little bit more for this first panel. But what I'm going to do here is what's called wetting out. It's how you lay fiberglass or any composite material. So let me go get my panel. So this is my first piece here. I'm going to take it, I'm going to just brush it all back in again. A good, nice coating on there. You can't be too thick. I'm just going to lay this in here and start dabbing it down. Now the screws are going to stick through it, and that's fine. It'll still come out. This doesn't have to be perfect. Again, this is just my first layer. I'm probably going to put three layers on this. And you'll know you're good. You just keep putting this in here until it becomes almost completely transparent. So you'll be able to see right through the fiberglass mat. You know, there's other ways of doing this. There's rollers and stuff like that you can use. I don't have one of those. So I just use these chip brushes. And again, for my purposes, they work really well. Try to make sure we got it stuck everywhere. No big air bubbles underneath it. This part here wants to stick up a little bit. A little more resin to it. We can, and that 3 ounces is gone. So yeah, that was 3 ounces and I'm out of it. This is already going to start curing, and I'm going to, that panel will be done. So I'll just do that same thing, that same process. I'll work that same process all the way across the panel. I'll put the far one in first, and then I'll put the middle one in and overlap the two that I just did. And that'll be the first coat, and then the next one will come a little bit wider than that one. And I'll probably make a mash to fill in this little gap here, so that the fiberglass transitions nicer. That's pretty much the process for doing just basic flat fiberglass work to repair. These body mounts are gonna be a little different. I'll show you how I'm gonna do those here in a minute. So since this is just a repetitious process now, I will do this out and I'll show you as I get done with it, you know, what it looks like. But this is just a repetitious process now of mixing fiberglass, or mixing resin, laying fiberglass, mixing resin, laying fiberglass. Well, it got really hot today and my resin was drying way faster than I wanted it to, so I took a break. Plus I made an appointment for a lunch date with my niece, and family always comes first, so that was more important than working on Rusty. But now the sun's going down, it's much cooler out here, the resin's is lasting a lot longer. That side has 2 layers of fiberglass on it, and it's curing up for the last layer, or the layer I have down. It'll get 1 more. This side here, which has been done a while ago, as far as 2 layers go, I just laid in 2 layers of Kevlar, and that's where the roll bar will mount, and I'm going to put a plate underneath here that the roll bar will mount to. So in theory, if I had a rollover accident, it would almost have to rip out this entire piece of fiberglass to have the bar come loose. And it'll be the same thing on the other side. We'll put in 2 big plates of Kevlar. So again, I don't know if it's perfect, but it's definitely stronger than what the factory had. And then they'll get 1 more layer of fiberglass on this entire piece. So, but that'll encapsulate the Kevlar. I'm going to work on this one mount tonight and try to get this one built. I don't think I'm going to get that one done tonight. The sun's is getting pretty low. But I will show you what I'm going to do with this one to build it out a little bit. I took the lid off of the Bondo container and cut a section out of it. So I have this. Then I'm going to fold it up a little bit, try to make a better shape. And I know it got to come out to roughly there, so I'm just going to make a shape that kind of works roundy-ish. So we'll tape that together. And then we will tape it onto the tub. So now it gives me a decent cup and a bottom to support the resin I'm going to put in there, and it won't go just dripping down all the way. So there's our little cup shape and where we're going to build it to. Let me show you how we're going to do this. I'm going to work the same process as I did with the other parts of this that we did with the fiberglass. For about 3 ounces or so. Went a little over, about 31, 37, 31, I can't see. 31 ounces. So 31, oh sorry, not 3.1 ounces, which means 31 drops of hardener. Mix this up, just like we did before. And we're going to make a very similar mash to what we did with the other filling in the gaps. This is going to be slightly different. So we're going to make the same mash, but I'm using 100% carbon fiber. It will make that body mount pedestal outlast anything, because it really doesn't break down ever. So that body mount pedestal will be around well after I'm gone. Again, we're just going to take small chops of it. Okay, we're getting there. We're getting a decent mash. Still got a lot of resin in it, so we're going to cut up a little bit more. That's pretty good. It's got a decent resin mix in it, but it's also mostly, and I want this one to run a little bit so that it'll pack in really nice and tight. If I make it too dry, it won't pack into the corners. Okay, so we'll take this, we just drop it down inside the cup. Just kind of dab it along a little bit in there. Well, there might be an air bubble or two when I'm done with this thing, and I may have to do a little bit of filler on it, but for the most part, this mount's going to be pretty much done when it cures. Take a little bit, there we go. Make sure we pack it in nice and tight, but we don't want to smash it too hard and knock our little plate off of here. Again, it's going to be close enough for what we're doing. Factory would not have been this precise, and the factory didn't have carbon fiber mounting blocks. This is going to be just an insanely strong mount. When I rebuilt these parts of the mounts, they were done when I thought that's where they were going. They were also built with carbon fiber. So got a little bit of this left. I'm going to fill in a couple gaps on the other side because I don't want it to go to waste. There's no reason to waste it. That mount here will cure in about an hour or so. I'll be able to pull that off of there, and I can see the cup on the side here is completely solid, and we'll have a perfect body mount. These are the last two body mounts I have to put in, and I can drill. Then I can drill all my holes. Well, that will conclude this two-part episode of the fiberglass work that I've been doing for the last few months on Rusty. Thank you guys for sticking around and doing the two-parter, and hopefully it was something that you learned or was interesting. Hopefully the next day or two I'm going to have all of this done, so that all I got to do is then put it back on and skim coat the outside with some body filler and prime it and get it ready for paint. Thank you all for watching. Remember to like and subscribe, and hope you all have a great week. Thanks a lot.